This Labor Day long weekend is likely the last weekend before the writ is dropped and the federal election campaign officially gets underway. So what's it going to look like? What's the tone going to be, and what are the issues that are discussed? Well, if the past few weeks and months are any indication, it ain't going to be pretty, and that prediction of a brass knuckles campaign, well, looks like it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. We've just come off of this several-day cycle where the big story, that the must-discuss, the big talker, has been Andrew Scheer's position on same-sex marriage, something that he articulated 14 years ago. Now, I remember the debate back then. I was in support of same-sex marriage back then, and obviously still remain so I would have disagreed with Andrew Scheer back then had I had a vote like he had in that video that he's talking about, how he will cast his vote. But it was 14 years ago. Andrew Scheer has since set the record and said, look, this is the law of the land. He's not looking to touch it. Oh, and by the way, a whole lot of other people held the same view, including the individual who was first trafficking in that video and trying to get us to talk about it, Ralph Goodale. Many other liberal characters, like Barack Obama, also voiced those opinions and voiced them several years after Andrew Scheer voiced them.
I do not support gay marriage.
Yet that hasn't stopped this being the big issue of the day. Is this what we're going to be dealing with here? Every day, this kind of barrage of stories. Andrew Scheer's a meanie. Andrew Scheer's this on gay rights issues and this on abortion issues and so forth. I mean, it really makes you pause and go, what is happening here with our political strategists, and perhaps more importantly, with people in the media who are amplifying this? Because, it's one thing for there to be stories that sort of float around in social media and people say, oh, Scheer said this and Justin Trudeau posed for a photo with that guy and what does it all mean? It's another thing to have people who are kind of gatekeepers of all of this in mainstream media to decide that that's a thing that we're going to elevate to national prominence and sort of push it to the fore every chance we get to say this is big news. Because that's part of the odd thing that happened with the Andrew Scheer gay marriage story. It wasn't just that liberal strategists were cynically pulling out this old clip that we know isn't particularly relevant anymore. I mean, they're going to do that. You can't fault them for doing that. They're looking around and they're trying to throw everything, even the kitchen sink, at the guy who is their main opponent because they want to say Andrew Scheer's a bad guy, he's got bad policies, don't vote for him, vote for Trudeau. That's their job. You can't fault them for that. But those people who took that and said, yes, this is the top story of the day, you kind of got to fault them for that. And one wonders, what sort of media bias are we going to see coming up in the next few weeks? How balanced are things going to be? We already know in the past few years, trust in media has eroded. There's a whole bunch of different polls out there, statistics, there's studies that show the degree to which journalists are registered Democrats in the US versus registered Republicans, academics, professors, and so forth. And we know it's just a fact that all of these things skew heavily left-leaning and heavily liberal. Does Andrew Scheer even stand a chance in all of this? And will we get some semblance, some balance of fairness? Are we going to see these two solitudes where we've got certain voices online and a few organizations out there presenting a balanced side or another side of the story, and then we have a mainstream side of the story which is heavily influenced by all of this liberal bias? You gotta wonder, because now that there are other ways to sort of do an end run around traditional media, the sort of stuff that Donald Trump heavily exploited via his own social media reach, well, that creates a lot of split. That creates a lot of people looking behind the curtain and going, why do we have these two completely different dueling narratives? And it's not good. It's not healthy for, I think, a civil society and a democracy to have these situations where there's just 180 discussions of issues, 180 degrees coverage, which makes one side kind of lose faith and trust in the other, which makes sort of voices on social media, certain news consumers say, I don't really trust those online news sources. I think there's another problem if the things that we're talking about all throughout the campaign are just innuendos and suggestions about all the evil and villainy that Andrew Scheer is going to get up to. It takes that promise that we're going to have a clean campaign. Remember, Justin Trudeau made that promise several times, and it really shows that nobody was sincere about it in the first place. I mean, if we want to do a completely clean campaign here, what we do is we talk about people's policies and we talk about their records. Now, to be fair, putting a video that Andrew Scheer said in the House of Commons, that's where he made the comment, that is his record. It's on the public record. So by all means, bring it up and discuss it, but let's question the kind of validity of it and how much we should be discussing it, how much it should be amplified. I think That's the question there. Shouldn't Justin Trudeau's record, which has happened much more frequently just in the past 4 years, not 14 years ago, and by the way, he is the person in the Prime Minister's office who has control over many things. Andrew Scheer is just the opposition leader right now. You know, the idea that he needs to be held account for something 14 years ago, somewhat accurate, but isn't it true that the guy in the main seat needs to be held to account more robustly for things he's actually done while in the governing seat just the other year, just a few months ago? But we haven't seen too much of that. Calling Trudeau to account for his record, for his successes, his failures, the promises that he's fulfilled, the promises that he's broken, and just looking at the general platforms as well. That's kind of more fair game politics, is it not? Well, we shall see this Labor Day long weekend, the last long weekend, the sort of calm before the storm, before regular Canadians more start tuning in to the daily sturm and drang and all of this. And the question will be, is the tone of the campaign, not just by the politicians, but by the media covering it, will it be such that it just sours people to the whole endeavor altogether? We shall see.